I'd like to call the regular scheduled meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor Terminal District as the sole governing authority to order for May 12th at 3:01 p.m. Machine is open for roll call. Let the record reflect that all members are present except Councilmember Blink, who is absent, and the executive director is here with his staff. This time I'd like to ask you to please rise for the prayer, and the pledge will be led today by Mr. Konovich. Let's pray. We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish's natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We also pray for the people of Ukraine and that you provide a path to peace and to stop the senseless killings. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will move to next item.
Agenda item 2, executive session. There are none. Agenda item 3, status report by the executive port director.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port, Harbor, and Terminal District. Follows is my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 29 April to 11 May. During this time frame, we conducted numerous meetings with DOTD and HNTB regarding ferry grants. The port is assisting in a rural grant for the relocation of the ferry ramps and the access road to the new ramp in West Point, Allahash. The scope of the work also includes engineering and design of a new ferry. These are very competitive grants, and we are pursuing every manner for funding these projects. The port has recently joined forces in a supporting role with Jefferson Parish in the lead to pursue a mega grant that would fund the rail relocation out of Gretna and around the Naval Air Station. The timeline on this grant is very short fused, and we are assisting the folks in Jefferson Parish to reroute the rail, which would result in a more robust rail support to the container terminal and a safer, more efficient route through Jefferson Parish. Venture Global has arranged a number of vendor fairs this week, and the port has advertised these events, and the Plaquemines Gazette has as well. Over the past week, the port crews have assisted in the search efforts for the missing child from New Orleans. In partnership with the PPSO Marine Division and the Cajun Navy, port crews are currently searching the drift line of the river with the assistance of a cadaver dog and drone. Our prayers continue to give this family closure in this tragic event. At this time, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and the board, Chris Fetters will provide an update of the mainline rail extension project. Chris?
Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Fetters with Louisiana 23 Development. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and open it. So as with the meeting in April, we have provided, or I'm asking the representatives from Volkert, Mr. Sam Matheny, to provide a status update of the mainline rail, going back over primarily a highlight of the phase 1 completion and what those task items were, very high level, and then to spend a little bit of time on what the proposal for phase 2 is and the main document items that would go into that. As soon as Sam pulls it up. Apologies. user recommended settings. Ms. Kim, can we get some, or somebody, can we get some help? We don't know exactly what is going on here. I'll kind of keep going as Sam. Oh, maybe that's it. All right, we'll try again. I think we got it. I got it. Thanks, buddy. All right. Before I bring Sam up, I wanted to highlight in general summary after some discussions about where some of those phase one dollars went in the larger bucket items. As you have been made aware, when LA 23 was brought in as an asset manager with SP for the project, we executed what is either referred to as a turnkey or a lump sum project. In doing that, the first phase of this was estimated at $3.25 million. Whereby we would take the risk and the responsibility to deliver a 10% design. That packet was delivered to the board at the last session in April. This is a general summary of where those funds went as far as management legal services, setting the project up, the commercial studies that went with it, and the kind of the setup of the overall program. And then we've broken it down to commercial modeling, the geotechnical data studies, GIS surveys, obviously the boundary maps, wetlands and existing utilities, and then the alignment components there at the end, which are almost about $900,000. So this is, generally speaking, where the funds have gone for this first phase and that packet that you were delivered. At this point in time, I'll ask Sam to finish out the overall presentation that outlines where phase two will go. After that, we will have a couple of other updates for you before we close out. Sam?
For the previous month's progress, we've completed our initial environmental constraints analysis. We've prepared our plans for our geotechnical investigation. We continued to obtain some property access permissions to start collecting field data. And we've been preparing documents for our initial briefing to the Federal Surface Transportation Board. We've also been conducting interviews for third-party contractors that are tied in with that EA that gets presented to the Surface Transportation Board. They require a third party to do that EA in conjunction with our design efforts. And we've also continued to work on preparation of the construction RFP for the track construction to try and get those long lead materials but procured in a timely manner so we don't fall behind schedule. Basically, we finished design one as or design phase one as we've reported. We now need to move into phase two. I realize that the vote for that is today. It's very critical for us to maintain that momentum and progress on the schedule. As just a general briefing, that there's 8 primary tasks involved in the phase two of the design of the total 4 phases. Phase two will be performing all our environmental and cultural resource surveys in the field, performing supplemental topographic survey of existing roads, structures, and drainage features that aren't necessarily picked up by an aerial survey, which has already been performed as part of phase one. Then we will also do our subsurface utility engineering in our QLC, QLB investigations. Then we'll perform our supplemental route analysis, and at that point, pick our selected preferred corridor. Once we've developed that preferred corridor, we'll start working on all of our permit documents, and then we will advance the geotechnical investigation, and then continue, of course, with our right-of-way acquisition activities. And then the final deliverable for phase two will be our 30% rail design package. For a little more detail, The environmental and cultural surveys, these are actually field work by crews in the field to verify the desktop studies that were done as part of phase one, essentially to confirm the limits, or, you know, identify things that weren't identified, such as, you know, wetlands and protected or endangered species, cultural resources, other items that could affect the route selection. Once we collect this data, then that's used to finalize the initial environmental constraints analysis, which is, you know, at that point is then when we pick our route selection. This field work was originally scheduled to start on the 2nd of May, but since this has not been approved as yet, we haven't started this work. And you know, as previously stated, we need the phase 2 funds approval. Task 2 will be the follow-up on the survey. What this basically does is we put personnel in the field along the 2 alignments, and they work 100 foot either side of center line, and they go out and physically survey and verify drainage features or anything that may have, you know, be questionable from the aerial survey. And then this you know, helps us to determine our horizontal coordinates for all those features, which are then incorporated into the final route analysis. Again, this work was going to start at the beginning of May, and as, you know, as stated, we can't do that yet because we have not been released for that. Task 3, this is a subsurface utility investigation. What this task will do is again, we put people in the field to do this, but there's 4, QL stands for quality level, I'm sorry, but there's 4 levels in this. QLD is the lowest level. That was actually performed as part of phase 1, and that's where we just take existing utility maps and infrastructure that's available and get those overlaid with our drawings, which was delivered as part of phase 1. QLC, that goes a little bit further, and that, you know, we visibly survey, you know, utility features such as manholes, valve boxes, anything that we've identified, and that will be done for both of the proposed alignments, because all those existing utilities factor into the selection of the preferred alignment. And once that selection is made, then we will go to the quality level B on the utilities, and that's where we, you know, we use geophysical methods such as trace lines and actually identify the exact location of the utilities and their depth below the surface, and that will be done 100 foot either side of proposed center line of track. Task 4 is, once we've collected all the field data, we'll combine that with other information we already have, such as property acquisition information, easements, road crossings that might be necessary, and construction cost estimates. And at that point, we select the preferred corridor. And then once we've selected the preferred corridor for task 5, we will start, you know, getting all the permit applications developed and ready to be submitted to the various agencies that are required to review those. In conjunction with that, once we've identified the preferred corridor and we've gotten our permit approved for our geotechnical investigation, we will go out and actually do geotechnical borings along the preferred corridor. We don't feel it's necessary to do that on both corridors, so we want to wait at this point until we have that defined corridor, and that will save some cost and as well as time. Then task 7 that's an ongoing activity as far as right-of-way acquisition. And, when we say acquisition, that doesn't necessarily mean the purchase of property. It could be negotiating easements or right-of-ways. And as the definition of phase two, we're supposed to have approximately 50% of the right-of-way acquired or under easement agreement. And just kind of an update of where we're already at on that, because that's been an ongoing process. Currently, if we go with alignment option A, the port and the parish already own 33% of that alignment. So that's, a very, very positive step. 61% of that alignment is owned by 4 major property owners, commercial owners, ranging from the north to the south. I've not included their names here just for the sake of privacy. But 44% of those owners, or 44% of that property, is owned by 2 entities which have granted us property access, and we're in the process of negotiating easements with them. 12% is owned by 1 entity, which we're in discussions with, but have not reached any agreements. And then 4.2% of that is 1 property owner or two property owners, small property owners that we have not yet approached. And then 5.6% of that alignment is owned by 12 individual, private residential property owners, which we have not approached them as yet either, since we haven't determined the route. And if we go with option B, those property owners would not be affected. And then just a summary for option B, where that stands right now. If we end up selecting option B, only 17% of that right of way is currently owned by the port. 77% of it is owned by 4 large property owners, with 30% of that being the same 2 entities I referred to in option A that we have, access agreements in place with, and 11%, as with the other route, a property owner that we're in discussions with. But 38% of the property is owned by 2 entities which have not yet engaged in discussions with us. And then only 1.4% of the property on that route is owned by private property owners of 5 individual owners. So purely from a right-of-way perspective, option A would be the most advanced at this point. And then task 8 is the 30% rail design. Once we've collected all the field investigation work and selected the preferred corridor, then we'll take the 10% design, advance that to the 30% package. And that 30% package will actually include all of the initial draft drawings for the horizontal and vertical alignment for the preferred track alignment. And it will also include all of the cross sections on 50 to 100 foot stations, and as well as rough drainage plans. So at that point, when the 30% package is complete, then the rest of the design work is less field oriented and more engineering oriented in an office environment. And kind of our schedule moving forward for the next 60 to 90 days. We've already, we've started to begin our route analysis with the initial work we've done as part of phase 1. By the middle of May, we're going to hopefully, if we get the approval today, we'll get people in the field and begin collecting all of our field data for phase 2. And then on 20 May, if we get the advance funds request, we'll try to get the RFP out on the street for the rail construction package so we can procure those materials to avoid any delays. And then ideally by 7 June, we'll have our route analysis finished and be able to select our preferred corridor. And then later in June, depending on being able to actually schedule with the board, we will go to Washington and make initial briefing to the Surface Transportation Board for their initial comments on the project. And then once we have their comments, we will complete our route analysis report for a final submission to the STB, along with our final environmental constraints map, which is part of that analysis. So that's where we're at with phase 2. And I went through that quickly, so if there's any questions, be free to respond to those.
Any questions from the board? I have a few. At our last meeting, I had asked you how much you had into the project to date, and did you ever get that number?
Yes, sir. We provided that number to LA 23, and due to our contractual requirements of my firm with them, I'm not authorized to discuss finances of the project. I'm the technical lead, so if you can direct those questions to Mr. Fetters.
So, we have addressed those questions in the past, and we have been told that we're not able to see those numbers. And that is part of the problem that I have, is that we don't know exactly what the breakdown is of the expenditures. And I know you were very cooperative at the last meeting, but since then you've been silenced. Is that correct?
No, sir, I've not been silenced, but that there's confidentiality agreements in our contract, so I cannot violate our contract.
Right, I understand that, and you're in a tough spot, because at the last meeting you were willing to provide the invoices, but then evidently you learned that you had a confidentiality agreement in your contract after you left the building.
Yes, sir.
And so that is part of the problem that I see with advancing the funding. And unlike your partner sitting in the audience who at the last meeting stated that they did not have a contract for the container terminal itself, we're working on the project with the hopes of getting paid, and he can answer those questions. So on these items that you have that are not listed in your presentation in black, you can continue working on those items, and are not subject to the red lining of this work cannot begin until design phase 2 are released. The rest of the items you can continue working on?
No, sir. The ones highlighted in red, that was those are the activities that we need to get started on immediately, and that's why we need the approval. The other activities will come a little bit later in the schedule, so we don't need to work on those just yet. We need to collect our field data first.
And so because of your confidentiality agreement, you really can't disclose too much more than what you've already said?
I can disclose anything you want me to as far as a technical, engineering or construction aspect, but again, the financial questions should be directed to Mr. Fetters.
Well, I'm not going to belabor the point on this issue now. We'll talk about it a little later, but I thank you for your presentation and the information that you presented today. Are you going to leave that with us in electronic form?
Yes, sir. I believe you have it. But I've also got hard copies if the board would like them.
Yeah, if you would give them to the secretary, she can distribute them. Any comments or questions?
I have, what are the procedures to incorporate LNG in the process of determining the final point where the rail gonna pass? Because the reason why I'm asking that, because I think they need to be involved in that for where they are, and it doesn't create any internal problems for them one way or the other. So if they are abreast of everything that's going on with the rail and where it's gonna be, I think they need to have some input into that. making sure that we won't interrupt this process.
Right, and we have reached out to them and provided them our initial drawings and are trying to coordinate our engineering with their engineering,
Yeah.
so we don't have conflicts. We can resolve them before we get to final.
But the problem is, they don't know where you're going with the rail. You don't know where you're going with the rail, right? Because it hadn't been determined yet.
Right, and they
Okay.
they play into that decision.
So they
We
are
need to
involved,
talk
that
to
they are in that process.
Yes,
Because my conversation I had, it seems to that they are not being kept up to breast of what's going on in the rail, what all the options are that's out there. So if the options are listed and they can say what can work or not work, or this can work, it probably depending, this option is not an option for us. It's both of those will work. You know, because I think once you come to a finalized position on that, then it's hard to change. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so you want to make sure, right, we want to make sure that it's done before. We don't want ex post facto this stuff. We want to be preventive stuff and make sure it all have a smooth transition all the way through.
I
But
agree.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
100%. And that's, we've been trying to reach out to them and get together with their design folks. And I've supplied them with both of our alignment drawings and our cross-section drawings. So we're trying to get those discussions going. I need information from them because that
Okay.
may influence which route we pick.
So they haven't responded. That's what you're telling me, right?
They have not responded effectively.
Okay, so I need to have that conversation again, because I don't want them coming to me after the fact.
Right.
I don't want you coming to me after the fact either.
No, I mean, I agree. We
All right.
need to talk with them.
All right.
I did get a hold of the head engineer and I told him the predicament we're in. He apologized. He's going to delve into it, but it has not been for a lack of outreach by our team.
I just want to make sure we cover all bases, and
I think that's very important.
I don't want
Very important.
no obstacles in our way.
So, you
I'm
completed, Councilman?
Yes.
So basically, as a follow-up to that, what are you requesting of their engineer that you're not receiving?
Well, first we've requested a meeting to have a meeting with them to discuss, the interfaces where our two projects meet. We've not been able to schedule a meeting with them. So I have followed up and given them specific information that we need initially, which is essentially the elevation of their elevated pipeline over the highway out to the levee, because we need to go under it, and there's minimum clearance requirements for both them and us. So we need to coordinate that, and then the width of our right of way, I need to coordinate with them. So I need to see their foundation plans so we know, where their foundations are at. So if we need to adjust our alignment east or west, we don't want to. We want to be as far away from their foundations as we can get.
So, have you looked at their FERC permit?
I have, and I cannot find those details. Now, I may have missed them, but I cannot find those specific details.
So, from all of the public information that's out there, you're not able to obtain what you need.
I don't know that I've actually seen all of the public information, Mr. Chairman, but what I've looked at, I cannot find the detailed information that I need. I mean, I have their site plan. I know where their stuff's going, but I need to know elevations and details of foundations. And I don't know if they've completed that design yet or not. So we're trying to get to the table with them because we don't want to do design work that we then have to redesign.
And you haven't really done any design work to this point?
Not the detailed, I mean, we've done the design work for the 10% phase. So we know, we know our two alignments, but we know we may have to adjust those. And,
When you
Kinder Morgan will also be a
a spot where we may have to adjust, but I have a meeting with their people next week.
So when you talk about your 10% drawings, are you talking about the CAD drawings that have the red lines overlaid on them?
Yeah, the package which I provided to the board last month.
Yeah, that's basically those red lines and that blue line on a CAD drawing.
Yes, sir, and all the coordinate geometry for the curves and the stationing for the rail lines. So I need to get in front of Venture Global with those drawings and say, do these match up with yours, or do we need to shift something?
Any further questions from the gentlemen? Yes. Question from the audience?
Yes, my question is on your task number 7 of the right of way acquisition. Has there been any kind of public discussion on eminent domain, forcing these people off their property?
Naturally, we don't want to force anyone off their property. And we don't necessarily have to have their entire property. We may just need an easement. So we have not discussed that with any of the private property owners yet because we don't know for sure which route we're going.
Have we had any town hall meetings below there telling the people what's gonna happen? Mr. LaFrance asked for that months ago.
Any further comments? And then your president, Mr. Valle.
Mr. Chairman, I know you all been waiting, just like the public has, for the results of the phase 1 and where the money was spent. I'm just curious, out of the first category, the first line item, I think it was about $1.7 million. It's a substantial amount of money that was put forth. The question I have is that when you approved the original $8 million in various phases, there was a line item budget that was put together for phase 1, and I have yet to see one for phase 2. And certain goals were to be met. And my question is, all those goals been met? Where we stand with those? Was the money spent? Is any money needed to complete them? And then we're looking to look at this phase 2, all these items. Where's the budget for it? Where's the line items? Where's the goals that's supposed to be accomplished? And what's the timeline that goes along with this? So it all can be measured as in the method of a performance. I've seen none as to yet. I don't know if you all have.
Mr. Valle, my concern is the same concern that I've been having, and that's the arrangement overall where we are not privy to the exact expenditures of the funds.
I understand your dilemma. I don't understand why they haven't done it. You know, I wouldn't fund another nickel, Sandy. You're in charge. You're responsible to them to make certain this gets done. I'm sorry. Don't give me that bull.
Hold on.
It's public money.
There'll be no interaction like this.
I'll sit down.
You address your questions to the board. Mr. Sanders, you address your questions when you're recognized. Yes, Mr. Edwards.
Yeah, Pope has been really strange to me how the parish government can find a deep pocket for the Pope and the Pope can go along and do a lot of stuff. I heard the gentleman talking about if public dollars are involved, then it shouldn't be private. If public money is being put in it. And I just think that a lot of people are suffering in this parish without jobs, and we'll pump a lot of money into this Pope. And I haven't seen no result in terms of bringing relief to the people that suffer and need jobs in this parish. And I thought that was the purpose of the Port Authority. And I haven't seen any dollars come back to our community yet.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Yes.
Rob Forche. Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of things wrong with this project. Number one, as it's been stated all along, this is a train track to nowhere. We have nothing that train track is going to be servicing. Planned, locked in, contractually where this train is going to go besides some vacant land. And we're putting the cart way before the horse, as some are, or a lot of y'all know. Why this thing is being pushed so hard by those that are doing the pushing, I'm not understanding as of yet. Obviously, there's some things going on behind the doors that that I don't think the council or the commission knows, as well as well, I'm not even real sure that the port knows. So um, until we get something that we need a rail to, none of the industries that are down there right now are planned to go in. The owners that are building these facilities need a rail, so why would we be building it? That was my major question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on this item? Any further presentation?
We do. We have two more that adjoin this, Mr. Chairman. One is Mr. Jason Hewitt. I think that he can shed some light on some of the questions and comments that have been raised regarding the structure. And then he'll be followed by Mr. Luke Labaugh, again with Volkert, to provide an update on where we are with the terminal and its development. So, Jason?
Is Sandy, is the are the slides loaded in?
Let me ask you this. Would it be more appropriate to have Mr. Labaugh make his presentation since he's with Volker and we can be consistent on what's going on with Volker and then have sustainability partners come forward and then make their presentation?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if you feel that that's more appropriate, we absolutely can do that. Yes, sir. I can bring Mr. Labaugh up now.
I'd prefer that because we're on the same track, so to speak. No pun intended. Actually, it was.
Can't seem to find Explorer here. Here it is. No, that's OneDrive. A minute, Mr. Chairman, sorry. No, it's not on Chrome. It's on the thumb drive. Here we go.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. I am Luke Labaugh with Volkert. Give you a brief update today on where we stand with the terminal progress. So first, just an overall view of kind of what's been going on with the project on the terminal side compared to last month when I was here. We have made some progress. First, we're continuing to work with the terminal operator, potential terminal operator APM, on mode of operation that involves the basis of design. The good news on the coastal use permit side, that was granted by the regulatory agencies. That's a really good box that is now checked. That allows us to, or allows the project rather, to go out and perform geotechnical borings when the time is right. So that was a major hurdle cleared. Nothing new really on the joint permit application other than that it's in due process. The Progressive Design Build contractor has been selected and negotiations are ongoing. And then lastly, we are having another stakeholder meeting 2 weeks or about a week and a half from now in New Orleans to talk through the project and where it stands, similar to what we had done about a month ago. So on the basis of design, again, not a whole lot new from the last meeting other than we're continuing to work with the beneficial cargo owner and the potential terminal operator on some of the operational challenges and issues like bunkering. We are looking at sustainability, especially with the backup power on some options there. So that is an ongoing process. I mentioned the coastal use permit has been received. Again, one thing that was that's listed in the permit is that borings are not allowed until the Carrollton gauge is at or below elevation 11. I think that's pretty common down in this part of the coast. And the good news is the river is trending down. I didn't check the gauge today, but last I did, it was just over 11. So that was very positive. Hopefully the river has crested, or at least not going to go up too much from now. Again, mentioned that the Progressive Design Build contractor has been chosen. We are in negotiations with that selected vendor right now. Hope to come to terms with them very shortly in the next week or two. And then we hope to have those folks at the stakeholder meeting in New Orleans on the 24th and the 25th. And then lastly, just a little bit of a look ahead, really a 60-day or so look ahead, is to execute the contract with that Progressive Design Build contractor and their engineer, to have the stakeholder meeting and the kickoff meeting, and then hopefully we can begin initiating the field work shortly thereafter to keep the schedule and the momentum on the project. That's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I'm going to follow the same line of questions that I had last time. First of all, did you execute a contract now?
We have a contract, Mr. Russell, but it's not funded yet until LA23 funds the project or funds the contract. So we're not charging as of this point.
So, but you have a contract and you're hoping to get paid one day?
Sure. Yes, sir.
And that contract has the same confidentiality agreement
Yes,
as
sir.
your partner? So you can't tell us about how much you're into the contract?
No, sir.
And
I
that's
can defer to Mr. Fetters.
Yeah, and that was informed to you after the last meeting as well?
Maybe I didn't know it at the last meeting, but yes, that is the information that I have.
So that's about all I'll have. Any questions?
I do.
Mr. Black, hold on one second. Let me give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project that you're talking about, which project is this again?
It's the phase 1 terminal.
Which is what? Just kind of layman's terms, just describe it.
It's a wharf. We'll have 3 berths on the water side, on the river side, of course, and then we'll have a potential for a beneficial cargo owner. We'll have a platform to put their facility, and then we'll have a yard for container terminals.
And all of these steps that you just described in your presentation, substantial amount of work?
It will be, yes, sir.
But up to this point, it has been?
It's been a fair amount of work to get to this point. It's conceptual level.
Will that rail that we just heard a briefing on be connecting to this project?
In future phases.
Okay. So it's pretty much a far cry to say the rail is going to an open field, right? Or to nowhere?
Certainly in out phases, we intend the rail to connect to the terminal. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none?
Yes, sir, I'm done.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
May need some tech support.
one. Mhm.
All right, hi. Jason Hewitt, Sustainability Partners. Apologize for the technical delay here. I talked to Sandy about putting together a couple of slides to kind of clear up language of our agreement, understanding what the agreement is and what it is, its function. And I appreciate everyone's time today to allow me to do that. So the first is starting off with a couple of definitions. The agreement that we've got with the port is called a cooperative endeavor agreement. So you guys may have heard the term of CEA. We're trying to get away from a bunch of confusing acronyms, but the cooperative endeavor agreement is what was entered into between Sustainability Partners and the port. And stage one of it is basically a rights fee, and that is the amount that Sustainability Partners has put forward. Total commitment of $8 million, and we broke it down into 4 phases. And what that's for is the intellectual property for the design and engineering of the rail extension. The next piece is how is the port gonna pay for that? And that's been set up through the same agreement as a revenue share, sort of a percentage of allocated revenue over time based on the amount of funds provided in the rights fee to the port. And then for stage 2, what's contemplated is assuming the project were to move forward into construction, is that we would move forward with an arrangement, what we call infrastructure as a service, and it would be on a per container basis. So once the rail is in place and it's operating, then the port would pay Sustainability Partners on a per container basis. The port would be charging customers on a per container basis. And that's approximately all in about a $42 million investment plus the estimated cost for the design and engineering. So a little bit about the SP agreement. I've heard this talked about at a couple of meetings. One, it does not constitute debt. That's been a big question. I know that the Port Commission is seeking an Attorney General's opinion on that as well. But under GASB 60 rules, it does not constitute a debt that the port has. It's really a concession agreement between Sustainability Partners and the port. They're a separate form of agreement. They're not classified as leases or debt, and they're off balance sheet, which is an important piece as this project moves forward and develop, is to make sure that the port maintains a healthy balance sheet. Payments. So since the revenue share amount is uncertain from period to period, it's based just on revenue that the port receives. And it's not considered a long-term liability. We don't, I've heard questions about, hey, what's the term, right? So how long will we be making these payments? So the first is that the port can make a payment in full at any time. So there's nothing that keeps the port from extinguishing the amount, and the port could leave it in place. We estimated if the port leaves it in place based on just revenue, it's about a 30-year period by which the port would pay back. Again, that will fluctuate based on the revenues of the port. Kind of important thing of why are we here? You know, in real distinction for everyone is that there's really two projects here. There's the rail project and there's a container port project. And of course, the container port is the very large and real opportunity that is in front of the parish. So SPs look to provide, we made a commitment to provide funding for the container rail in a manner that we feel is the least burdensome for the port. So rather than taking on debt, we did it in this concession style. We also did it in phases so that the Port Commission could say, all right, let's make sure that there's going to be a terminal there. So let's take this project in steps. And, you know, to me, that's just a really smart approach that the Port Commission has taken on this, so that you can take these measured approaches. Had we not, I think, you know, Chairman Roussel, you've got questions that you want answered. It would be a bad scenario if we just move forward with the whole project without making sure that, you know, we get questions answered as best as we can. So what's the plan? I talked briefly about this. The plan would be is that phase one, which we call a capital recovery service, that's a marketing term that we use of that concession agreement. So that would be in place until phase two, which we're calling construction of the port, of the rail. We would then roll that obligation into that per container kind of thing. So the idea here is that the first $8 million is not really the long-term plan. It would be then rolled into the construction aspect of the port. And really important to say that once that starts, the port will not have any monthly obligation and payments. So we take the risk that those containers will be moved on rail and we'll have customers for it. And so the initial risk that the port's taking right now during this design phase gets transferred over to us, and we'll take that risk moving forward in phase two. What are the deliverables from LA23 in phase one? I think that's probably has been gone over. So I'll skip down to phase two. Development of the supplemental permit documents, 50% complete topography survey, 50% complete geotechnical survey, 50% complete right-of-way acquisition, 50% rail alignment progress, and 40% complete design package would be the next phase as far as the designs go. And then that would go into phase three. That would come in front of the commission to approve. Completion of all supplemental permit documents, 100% completion of the topographical survey, 100% completion of geotechnical survey, 100% completed right-of-way acquisition, 100% rail alignment progress, and 70% completed of the design package. And then finally, phase four, which would need to be completed before the construction phase, the completed and issued permits, 100% complete design package, the provision of construction support, damage settlement with respect to the right-of-way related services. That's really the deliverables there. So what are the roles of the port? The port approves each of those phases. First phase is $3.25 million. Second phase is $2.5 million. Third phase is $1.25 million, and the final phase is $1 million. The port approves the pay applications for the work performed during each phase. And then what's SP's role? Well, we're providing the necessary capital for the intellectual property design and engineering of the rail extension by way of the rights fee. And then certainly in phase two, providing the capital necessary for the installation of the rail and partnering with the port to make sure that it's maintained and kept safe and reliable and fully functioning so that it can be a revenue generator for the port. And important note to note there, once we move into that phase two, there's no cost to the port until it's operational. So one of the, some of the benefits for the port, for the rail extension project, so this really enables the port to gain a new revenue source from operating the rail extension and charging fees for the use of that rail. It's certainly a catalyst for economic development for the area. A revenue on a per per car unit basis, and then it really provides the ability to increase revenues just due to increased volumes of cargo being able to be had. Another question that came up is the port responsible for payments to SP? So under this phase one concession agreement, yes, the monthly distribution of funds. And that, as discussed, what the plan would be is to roll that obligation into the infrastructure as a service, which is the per container type deal upon completion of the rail and it being commissioned and put in service. Another question is what does the port own? So in this current phase, the intellectual property for the engineering and design work for the rail extension. So the moment that work is done, it becomes the property of the port. Under the infrastructure as a service, Sustainability Partners would own the rail, and the port has 100% operational control and profiting right on the rail. So the port would operate the rail, and it has this right in an indefinite future. So basically forever. This is a slide as far as kind of hard to see here. Estimated payments for 21 and 2022. Give me just a moment. And I know that there's a budget item here. So for the payments for 2022, I think the budget amount is $581,200, and I can't read the last 211 for 2022, and that's making the assumption that all of those phases are approved and we've deployed the full $8 million. And with that, I'll be open to questions.
Any questions from the board? I'll have a few. The follow up on the intellectual properties, you stated that the port will own the intellectual properties?
Yes, sir. The port actually owns them the moment that they are created under our agreement.
What, under the design and engineering services rider to the master services agreement number 67, what does paragraph 3 on there mean when I read it? It says intellectual property in deliverables. The SP entity shall own all right, title, and interest in and to the deliverables, including deliverables delivered to the SP entity as part of the canceled services prior to cancellation, and all intellectual property and other rights in the deliverables, except to the extent that any of the foregoing contain provider materials. So what does that really mean if we own them?
Did you say the MGSA?
This is the design and engineering services rider.
Sure.
To the master goods and services agreement number 67.
Sure. So what that agreement is the agreement between SP and LA23. So what happens is those rights are transferred over to SP, and then SP transfers those rights over to the port. That happens simultaneously per the agreement.
Okay. So since those rights and all will become, those transfers to SP and they will be owned by us. Right?
Yes, sir. So for phase one, I'm sorry for interrupting. For phase one, those deliverables are done. That's the port property.
Right. So can you understand my concern why I would like to see what we are paying for through your payments to to LA23 when we are going to own the deliverables? And I would like to know what's being spent. And, I know we have this disagreement about debt, and we had this disagreement about what we can see and what we can't see. But when I look at the contract that you have, and I read that paragraph in there, and I've read it to you before, to the extent, one second, wrong page. When I read this paragraph, and I've read it to you before, and this is not the first time, I've had this discussion with you, and we just can't seem to come together. It says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary set forth in the project agreements, SP is not responsible or liable under any circumstance or legal theory for the performance of provider, nor is it responsible or liable for the quality, sufficiency, or delivery of the work product developed by provider. So,
That's right. That's right. We're the
Let
capital.
me finish.
I'm sorry.
So I understand, and you've told me this many times, you just provide the money.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sitting here having to make the monthly payments on a rail that does not exist for the future use of a rail that might exist. And in the process, we spend up to $8 million, or actually you spend $8 million, with an agreement that we are going to pay it back through monthly payments of a rail usage fee. So the deliverables to me are important to know what we are getting ourselves on a hook for, so to speak, to make those payments. Because it says here that you're not responsible for any of that, or the quality, the quantity, or of anything. So as a payer of those payments, it only makes sense to me that I need to see what we're paying for.
Sure. There's no doubt, and I understand what you're asking and requesting. The agreement that this body approved between, SP and the port, as well as LA 23 and SP, is that we have a lump sum phase one, $3.25 million. So we paid LA 23, was the only authorized vendor that the port authorized to provide this service. We paid LA 23 $3.25 million to deliver that service. Now, in our agreement, we don't know what the subcontractors charge. That's not part of the deliverables to us. And I know it's a frustrating point for you, but we don't have that information. So it's similar to, if you buy a house and you buy a house from a builder, you don't know what he paid the plumber to put the plumbing in. That's a simple comparison, I know, but that's really where we're at. We engaged LA 23 per the port for $3.25 to deliver phase one, and it's proposed for the other three phases to do the same.
Well, let me just say this. In building a house, when I have a contractor comes to me, he gives me an allotment for the plumber. So I know what he's paying the plumber. I understand what he's paying the electrician. So that analogy doesn't wash for me. So do you have another one?
I can't give you what I don't have, right? So contractually, we engage for a lump sum contract. I don't have what I don't have. I wish I had it. I would give it to you if I had it. I would give it to you.
Well, the issue for me is the lack of transparency, and you admit that it's not there. And the issue that I have with the LA 23 contract is that in the contract, we are not to pay him anything. And so what happens is, in my mind, and I'm kind of simple-minded, that this $3.2 million that's given to him, and it looks like he takes the first $1.6 million or whatever the number was off the top for him. So when you sit here and you wonder how that money got shoveled from your payment to him back to him, and we're responsible for the payments. But let me move on. So we have a monthly payment. And in the contract, the monthly payment says we're going to pay up to $70,000 per month by the end of this year. And it also says that we're going to be paying it for rail usage fees for the future. But it also says that if the rail usage is not there, where do we get the money from to pay that note?
So if we follow the plan and phase one gets put into each container charge, then there's no monthly fee for the design and engineering phase.
You had not answered the question. In the contract, it says that if we fall short on rail count containers, the port has to make up the difference from whatever fund that we have. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't
That's the
understand your question. Yes.
So, I don't want to get sidetracked on another rail.
Yes.
So the bottom line is this body is committing to making payments whether the rail traffic is there or not once we get to that stage.
Sure. Which is, really fundamentally the question I think that probably needs to get answered today is do you want the rail, right? Because whether it's me or someone else, you're going to pay for the rail. whether it's, SP or debt or something like that, you're going to have an obligation if you want that project to move forward, if you think it's a worthwhile project. I can tell you, we think it's a worthwhile project because we are looking to put our capital into it, right? So we think it is, and others do too, because they're looking at the terminal and what's occurring there.
Well, let me say this. The way you couch this is is exactly what I expected. This is not for me a matter of whether I want the rail or not. And I understand there is a narrative being constructed out there by certain people to pit this as for the rail or against the rail. And that narrative is really a political narrative to put pressure on individuals who are willing to take that track towards, I need the rail, I will do anything to get there, don't need to see the details, don't care what you spend the money on, and I'll pay it back. Versus the other rail that I'm on is that I want to see the accountability. Because you're not seeing, according to your contract, the details. You're just seeing lump sum money. And you don't care. I say you don't care because you've already corrected me that you do care. But you're not responsible, and I'll read this again. Under any circumstance, sufficiency, delivery, or whatever they deliver, all you there for is the right to check and make the payment. And on my side of the desk here, I'm responsible for making sure that that money is spent correctly, and I'm not seeing it. And I don't want it to be couched in the political narrative that you just did. You're for the rail or against the rail. That's not it. Because believe me, there's a way to do this rail without anybody that's in the room now. However, at the end of the day, you're going to own the rail. Correct?
That's correct.
So why do you even need us here to approve money that you are putting up to build your rail?
So as our model is working with government entities, right? Our model is not necessarily working with private entities for this. So this is, and I'm not trying to play the politics, but this is the moment where the Port Commission participates in a larger opportunity. This is the piece.
However, why is this body being asked to guarantee the payments for a rail that you are owning and that you're going to be building when we really don't have to be in this picture?
That's a decision that this body gets to make, right? So the reason that we are here and we are in this agreement with the port is because there is a revenue sharing opportunity for the port.
But the revenue sharing for the port is based on us guaranteeing the payments. Is that correct?
Yes. Otherwise, it would be private. You would have no opportunity.
I mean, you're a private company. He's a private company. If this is such a good deal, why aren't y'all out there building it privately? And you got a captive audience. There's no other rail down there. So obviously we would have to put the cars on your rail, which we're going to do anyway, and just jack the price up to the user so we can pay everybody that's been cut into the pie.
But, I'm sure that all parties that are involved in this have discussed that as an option. The feedback that I've gotten was that this is something that the port should be involved with as a revenue generator for the port. It gives the port an important part of this process, because the terminal is, as you know, it's moving, it's on its way.
Well, that's fine. I haven't seen it moving, to be honest with you. However, I'm stuck on the rail and the obligation that we are and the lack of transparency. And I beat this horse many times, and I'm not sure it's going to get to the finish line, but I can tell you one thing, that there are other opportunities, and to couch this as you want the rail or not want the rail and hide behind that issue is a bogus issue.
Just one last point, Mr. Chairman. So as far as concern, right? So do we care? We do care, right? So this isn't necessarily fun for you or for me to be up here. So clearly we care. The other thing is that where we could, we put pressure on LA23 to bring a high quality level of vendors and subcontractors to the table. For instance, they had a different program manager, project manager. We forced that change because we wanted to make sure that you would get a quality work product, right? And I think that's the easy part is Volkert's going to deliver.
Expand on that. Who was the one that you said that you squeezed off?
It was Project Source Group was the company. They were originally brought to us to be the project and program manager. We didn't feel that they had the expertise. It was a small firm. It was a new firm. So that's when we pushed and said, you've got, LA23, you've got to find somebody that can deliver and has delivered, right? Because at some point in time, you may ask the question of, hey, is the work product quality? And the only way that we can work towards that, because we're bankers and not engineers, is to bring in, top quality vendors.
Okay, one more little sentence here on the design and engineering services rider, number 5, cooperation with the customer. Who is the customer?
You are the customer. Yep.
Coordinate with the customer during the design process, which we're in now, correct?
That's correct.
And attend all meetings requested by the SP entity with the customer during the design process, correct?
Yes, sir.
And attend meetings reasonably requested by the SP entity and customer as necessary to facilitate the design of the project, correct?
Yes, sir.
However, when we ask, or me personally ask for the transparency, there's nothing you can do to make it happen.
You have everything that I can deliver to you already.
So there's no way that we can settle this issue of lack of transparency of where the money's going.
Well, I think it's clear where the money's going, right?
No,
we paid $3.25 million to LA23. Beyond that, I can't really comment on it.
Right, I agree. I apologize. You're correct. You wrote a check for $3.2 million and it's out the door, and that's all that matters.
Yes, sir.
And we're here being asked to make monthly payments to repay that $3.2 million, and we shouldn't care either.
No, I don't think that's prudent, right? I think you should care, right? And that's why Volkert is here with their work product and delivering and things like that.
Let me say this. I appreciate Volkert's efforts and their reporting, even though they've been gagged with this contract. So you two gentlemen, I want you to know that I appreciate your work. And I wish that we would have hired you directly and not gone through some intermediary that'll block you of transparency for the work that you do. Because I believe you do good work. Now, having said that, I'm going to yield because this can go on forever. And we're going to have some more discussion when the other members move to do what they want to do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Valet.
One of the questions I asked earlier was where the money went to, and you've touched upon it, and you just made a presentation based upon phase 1 deliverables. I guess my question to you is that, are those deliverables belong to the port now? Can we measure those, and where can we see those? Is that a real product?
Let me say this, Mr. Valet.
Okay.
This process started some time ago about deliverables and transparency and trying to get them. The first thing they did, the sustainability part, they gave me a jump drive, and I'm repeating myself from the last meeting. The jump drive was so convoluted and duplicative that it took me 3 days to search through that jump drive, and I got no information that I was looking for. What they did do a good job is they created a dashboard, and they consolidated that jump drive on the dashboard that provided the same information, took out the duplicate information, but it was the same information. No more transparency than before. I still get the invoices as far as lump sum monies, don't know who they go to. And so the answer to your question is deliverables as far as broad categories. We got a bunch of presentations. They included some of the documents in there were the environmental impact statement for the rail bypass project for Jefferson Parish that the regional planning did as a deliverable. So again, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to move on. Yes, Mr. Valley, go ahead. What's your question?
That answers part of it, Mr. Chairman. The thing is if you all decide now not to go forward, what do you get for the $3 million that you put up already? And is that yours? And can that be used for anybody else you bring into the picture in the future if you want to go forward with somebody else?
It's my understanding from what I have been given as supposedly deliverables. We got a bunch of PowerPoint presentations.
You know, this is really a sad day in Plaquemine Parish. You know, I looked at the Wizard of Oz for many years, you know, and I thought most of us probably saw the Wizard of Oz, but seemed like the parish government didn't see the movie The Wizard of Oz, and you really thought the Oz was real. Because that's, and I'd like to know the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and other characters that went for this Wizard of Oz trick that was placed on the people of Plaquemine Parish.
All right, any further comments or discussion on this item?
You know, it's a Petrie again, and you know my thing on the Petrie deal. But Benny, you give the public a real great education just a while ago, man. And transparency is important. When we do things, we got to do things right. You know, got to do things right. This is not a good deal for the people. For the people. The port supposed to do things for the people. You know, jobs are fine, but it's also supposed to make an income for the entire parish. You know, yeah, it gives jobs, but most of those jobs are outside of the parish that comes and get them. But what it does for the parish itself, so the money that the parish do get from the port, it can be used for the people.
Any further comments?
I'll reiterate. It's a train to nowhere, and we are paying for something that we will never own. Never own it. How can we accept that? I can't.
Any further comments?
So I'd like to make a couple of comments in closing on this part. So first, when the agreement between LA 23 and the port was executed in 2019, it was very specific in what it did and did not allow. One of the things that it focused on was the delivery of alternative funding resources for rail, warehousing, and utility services. It also predicated that I was not to be paid directly by the Port Authority, that any financial compensation that I need to receive would be done on the other side of the agreement that would not be indicative of the Port Authority. So we have honored that agreement as it was struck. The next part of this is that when you do projects like this, these are at-risk projects that require most oftentimes lump sum delivery. Lump sum delivery is actually what this contract is based on. And in that lump sum, I receive those funds that have been approved. And if I make a profit, I make a profit. If I do it at a loss, I do it at a loss. That risk is on me in order to deliver it. That 10% design per Volkert and per SP and the Port Administration was delivered. If anyone has an issue with the quality of the delivery, I mean, we're happy to sit down and walk through that and go back to it. And again, that's on a risk. That means that we did not deliver the 10% design, and therefore we must compensate for that. That's part of what a lump sum delivery charge is. So all of these discussions about where the money goes, that's a lump sum contract. And in no lump sum contract does the provider, myself, open up their books and show where all the subcontractor invoices went. It's an at-risk proposal for us. That's what was agreed to in July of last year. Is a lump sum delivery contract. That's what we've provided and executed at actually a little bit of a savings at $72,000 less. Most lump sum contracts will come back with change orders because they take it at risk. They identify the risks, they figure out what it is, and then they have come back and ask for more money. Part of the clause that we have with SP is that coming back for more money better require significant change, such as a flyover during the construction period, things of that nature. But in a normal rail alignment, that was the scope of services under a lump sum that was delivered. And we're happy to sit down and turn page by page with any engineering group that wants to review the quality of the 10% design that was delivered at that price.
You complete?
Yes, sir.
Let me say this, that lump sum that you're talking about, it would be much more appreciated if we didn't see the little line items that you put on these pay stubs. And it looks to me like what's happened is you took the money off the top and you're still paying the subs out of the 3.2.
Took the money off the top and then I'm still paying the subs?
Look, I'll just use this one example. As the first pay scale, right? Application number 1, phase 1 service costs, 200,000, correct? The next line item, management team service,
$2
$1,000.
million, right?
What?
$2 million.
$2 million.
Yes, not 200,000, 2 million.
Sorry, you're correct. You took more than I thought.
Mhm.
LA 23, another 121,000. Then you go down here and you say project manager services, OSO development partners, commercial modeling and all of that. We don't know who that went to because it's your subs.
That's correct. And under a lump sum environment, that is exactly the procedure that you
Well,
follow.
let me say this. I can't support it. I don't like the agreement that we have with you. I didn't vote for it to begin with. And I can tell you that anybody who is responsible for public money should want the transparency that I'm asking for, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Any further comments from the table? You completed? Thank you. Nobody else? Next item.
Agenda item 3A, financial report budget to actual. There is none. Item 4, bids and advertisements. There are none.
We have one.
Oh.
Oh, that must be what Carolyn said, that she would tell us what it was.
You need to communicate with the secretary so we'll know.
Send it to her.
All right, proceed.
Carolyn, that we had no clue what it was, and Stacy responded asking what it was.
Just proceed.
Okay, the port, received a port security grant funds for this. And after due advertisement, seal bids were received on April 19th for the purchase of a mobile maritime domain security trailer for the port. Sandy Sanders recommends the acceptance of the bid from Satellite Shelters
For how much?
for, $62,446.
We have a motion.
What size?
Pardon me?
What size?
The size is, I got it right here, 12 by 40, 12 by 46.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilmember Black. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Albro, a second to accept the bid. And we only had one bid, by the way.
Yes.
Any further comments or discussion on the acceptance of the trail?
And that's 62,000?
Can you forward that to her?
62,446.
Yes, sir.
Any further comments on the item?
And the grant, there was enough money in the grant to pay for it?
Yes, sir. We are going to do a budget adjustment that's being introduced as well. The grant was for $36,750.
And answer your question, Councilman LaFrance?
Yes.
So we'll be coming out of the general fund for the balance. Any further comments on this item? Comments, questions? Hearing none. Machine is open. Let the record reflect the bid is approved 8-1. Next item, please. 8-0, excuse me. Mr. Blink is absent.
Item 5, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. I have one for Commissioner Bartholomew, a resolution authorizing Menard J. Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to enter into a professional service agreement for the purposes of engineering and design services with LADOTD and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And that is it.
Next item, please.
Council, Chairman Roussel, in the email that Kim
didn't see because we just pulled it up, but we did send over an introduction for the remaining funding for the mobile command center. I mean, the mobile trailer, if we can get that introduced.
Revert back to item 5, please.
This is for Councilmember Blink.
I think it's,
You see, bring it up.
Oh. This is for Commissioner Roussel. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for the mobile maritime domain security trailer. The Plaquemines.
that's what I gave her, was the budget amendment.
An ordinance appropriating funds.
That's what I gave her.
An ordinance to amend the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District's 2022 revenue and operating expenditure budget, otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
In the future, we could put more details in that. Any further items under item 5? Hearing none. I believe 6B will probably be deferred. Mr. Blink is not here. We'll move to next item, please.
6C, a resolution authorizing the Port Executive Director, Menard J. Sanders, for and on behalf of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to name and accept the proposal of the Plaquemines Gazette as the official journal for the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Rousseau.
Offer next or second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Konovich. Any further comments or discussion? Dale, you can sit. Morris, you can stay where you're at. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, the machine is open. Normally I ask you questions, but not today. 8-0, with Mr. Blink being absent. Next item, please.
Item 6D, an ordinance to amend the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District's 2022 revenue and operating expenditure budget and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Gui.
Second by Councilmember Arborough.
Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to ask is in my comments, I will be making comments that will address both this ordinance and the accompanying resolution afterwards, even though we'll vote on them separately, but I think they are connected. The consideration that we're being asked to consider is a continuation of a contract which we approved on July 22nd, 2021, to build the 10 miles of rail extension in order to reach the proposed container port. As per the contract, first legislation will be to approve the concession funding, and that was discussed a little earlier, needed to complete the phase 1 soft cost for the project, and that, as I understand, would take approximately 9 months. The amount of money is $581,211, and it was broken down in one of the graphs as to how that would be paid. And that was explicit in the contract. The purpose of that first phase was to obtain a finding of no significant impact by the Federal Rail Administration and the Surface Transportation Board. Once that's done, it'll result in the approval of the permit. Once the permit is approved, then we can actually start construction. Tandem to that, as you heard earlier, there are efforts being made to expedite that construction. We also know that the rail extension is a service, a utility service that will be provided to the container port. Now, the second piece, which actually does connect to the first in a lot of ways, is to accept the deliverables from Volcker. And it's been stated today that those deliverables have been received and they're acceptable to all parties, even though we have not gone through each item of the engineering, but Volcker has as project engineer, project manager, and they are quite satisfied with the work of the subconsultants. And then, of course,
to authorize stage 2. That'll also be in the resolution. And we've had a lot of discussion about that. So we can take all of that information that's been tossed around, and I think we can break it down into a very simple set of questions. One I alluded to earlier was the work that was done by the sub-consultants, has it achieved the deliverables to come to the 10% stage of the rail extension project? I think we've heard today from Volkert that they're satisfied with it. And we're also heard that Volkert wasn't the first one who was on the table. There were consideration was given, but it was decided to go with a more widely known and experienced firm. The second thing is that a container port, a container terminal. When I look at what do we have to supplement our budgets, and I'm talking about the budgets of those entities who are taxing bodies, talk about the revenue stream that comes into government. What do we have anywhere on the horizon that's going to provide the type of revenue that this is going to provide? And I don't think there's an argument there, but we have to ask ourselves if we do believe that. And from what I've heard today, I think that the private sector believes it, and that they're going to proceed accordingly to make it happen, with or without us. And then, as we've heard from the beneficial cargo operator and the proposed beneficial cargo owner and the proposed terminal operator, is that contracts are in place for deliverables by those entities, and that they can do it, and they can do it from Clackamas Parish, as long as we can get the rail to them and have the site built. And I think we've heard today that there's pretty much confirmation to that. There's great interest, and the rail is the essential part. It's the driver. Without the rail, there's no one to use the container port. So something that wasn't brought up today, and I asked in one of my meetings, I said, we're talking about the port generating funds from the usage of the rail. And it took me a while to get my head around it as to how that would happen. And then finally, I get it with the usage fee. But my question that I asked Mr. Fetters, I said, has a pro forma been done? We're talking numbers, but I haven't seen any numbers. Based on what the BCO says their needs are going to be on the rail, and how many unit trains will be done over a period of a year, what would be the net profit for the port if that happened? And we got a number of somewhere around $600,000 a year to the port. That's profit. That's profit, not after what's being paid that's after what's being paid to SP. And then I said, is that it? And then it was brought to my attention that once and this is in the BCO's pro forma, that once the Peters Road bypass is done, that number should jump to 6 million. Well, what's going to drive that? I said, what's going to make that happen? And he said, what's going to make it happen is the container port and the need to move those boxes. So that was kind of laid out to me in a format that I can understand. I think that the question that we have to answer, or the decision that we have to make is, what part of that do we want to be? What participation does the port want to have? And as it stands right now, away from increased revenues, jobs, increased service industry, businesses, retail, all of the stuff that comes with the establishment of the container port, is that we know that the opportunity for us to participate by
being part of the rail, by being part of the rail and being able to receive those funds from to the port depends on whether or not we want to participate. And if we don't, we don't. And if we do, we do. I'm sure someone's out there ready to jump on taking over that rail. But we have an opportunity to be part of that and to have a revenue stream as long as that rail's there. And if there's too many questions, if there's uncertainty, then maybe we're not comfortable in voting that way. Well, then we have to vote our conscience. But if in our gut, we feel like this is the opportunity, this is the landmark moment to keep moving along and let this port be an economic engine for the parish, then we should support this. So I'll leave it at that. It's pretty simple, and it's up to us as a body to decide whether or not we're going to continue with this. And at the end of the day, so be it. I yield.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? A couple of points that I'd like to get clarified. You mentioned that the deliverables from Volker are all satisfactory and all. So Volker is able to give us deliverables, but they can't tell us how much they're being paid for those deliverables. Is that what I get from Dr. Gouy?
I was repeating what people said early on, was that the deliverables were according to what they were supposed to be. Am I correct that you saw the subconsultant, the subcontracts, they were delivered on time and they performed as they were supposed to perform? And that's what I was commenting on.
Right, would you come clarify that, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the deliverables that we provided for the 10% conceptual design are standard for a 10% design in this industry.
So the total $3.2 million expenditure you're approving?
I don't understand your question.
Well, the first deliverable is $3.2 million. And those deliverables are phase one. And I'm trying to extrapolate in my mind that you are justifying the expenditures and those deliverables for the first $3.2 million of this project.
Well, it's not my position to justify the expenditures. I don't hold the contracts.
I know, but Dr. Gouy just said that you approved all of the deliverables for this phase of the project so we can move to the next phase of the project. So,
and the deliverables meet the requirement that they were to meet.
So you have a list of all of the subconsultants that were hired that make up the 3.2 million, and you're standing and justifying that $3.2 million expenditure.
I can't justify the $3.2 million expenditures because I'm not responsible for the financials, but the deliverables that were provided for the 10% design are correct. I mean,
and who are those deliverables from?
They are from LA 23 to the board.
That's my point. So you cannot justify, and nobody at this table can justify the expenditure of the 3.2. You can only justify what Volker did. You can look for the direction, but just answer.
Well,
I'm gonna let you off the hook. Okay?
I mean, the expenditure is within line of what this level of design would typically entail. I mean, I don't have the financial reports for that, but you know, it's not a unreasonable amount of money for the deliverable that was made. And
well, you see, that's the problem that I have. I don't know what the deliverables and the real number is either. And I know you're having a struggle with this, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'm going to let it go. I just can't support not knowing where the 3.2 million went, even though you say that the deliverables is a great word, but I'm more detailed than that. I like to know the details of the deliverables, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, sir.
So that's all I'm asking for, and I can't get it. And you know, my colleagues, they can accept the word deliverable and some PowerPoints. I can't. I yield. All right, Doc, and no, I don't yield. 1 second. We're going back to a budget amendment. So this is a situation where how many payments have you made so far this year and last year?
We made a payment for November, a partial 27 days of November, which is when the first disbursement of funds were issued for phase one. There was a payment for December 2021 made. And in addition to that, for 2022, January, February, March, and April. And May has not been completed.
Okay. And so we had this discussion in the past, and you told me that you made these 6 or 7 payments with out of the general operating budget, correct? With no appropriation.
From the operating budget within the operating services category, yes.
With no appropriation. So why is it so important now to have an appropriation?
Well, as I have stated, it has came to the board before. This is the I want maybe third time that we have presented it to the board. The port has funding in its operating services category budget. This fee, this agreement that we have entered in, we are obligated to pay that. As long as we have funds in the budget to pay that. I'm not an attorney, but I think it would be illegal for us not to pay them when you have the funding in the operating services category budget. I think it's important that we do this budget amendment so that, one, we show transparency and we show that we agree to pay this amount for that amount. If this budget amendment is not passed, we are still, as I stated, legally obligated to pay these fees based on the agreement that the board has agreed and entered into with this company. So in the result of not approving this budget, those payments are still due. That means other things within the operating budget, operating services category budget, may not have funding at the end of this year if we don't appropriate the funding for this particular expenditure. That's what it means if you do not vote for this. That is a possibility that at the end of the year, I can't say now that we don't have funding. We have money because we haven't spent a lot. We're just getting out of the first quarter of the year. So towards the end of the year, if this budget amendment if these funds aren't put in for this particular contract, we may be running out of funds for other items that may come later on in the year.
For instance, what would we be running out of funds for?
So different items that is included in the
Since it's not a debt, why do we have to pay it? It's not a debt to us.
It's a rights fee for the property that has been produced. It's the terms of the agreement.
Not a debt.
Different categories within the operating services and supplies budget. We have a subcategory, operating services and supplies. We have communication within that budget, rental leases, maintenance, legal support, professional consulting, and technical services, materials, parts, and supplies.
Look, I believe that we have a budget. And to just take money out of the budget, like you just said, across the board is not appropriate.
We have a port budget policy, and that is that this board has adopted. We recently just did a review of that budget policy. I want to say in 2020, towards the end of the year in 2020, December, which followed our external audit. We did a review of that budget policy. It was presented, all amendments, it was discussed, it was redlined with this board. We voted on that budget policy, and that is the policy that I'm that I am following. What I just stated, what has been presented, it's within the budget policy.
All right. Go ahead, Ms. Newberry.
Yeah, Shimbrel, so as was stated, this is not debt. If this doesn't get approved, then are we creating debt? And we still owe the $3.2 million, is that correct?
This CEA, as they stated and explained earlier, as a concession agreement, we have legally entered into this agreement with this company. You are liable for these payments. This is what the board has agreed to pay. So as far as it becoming debt, it can't become debt. It is what it is. It's a concession agreement. It's a CEA. Now, I think if you decide not to pay, you pass resolutions, whatever, instructing Mr. Sanders not to pay this, cease the payments, whatever the case may be. In my financial opinion, you're going to have a legal issue, and that's as far as I can comment on it.
And what is that total cost if we continue to move forward? Was it 500 and something thousand dollars? What was
The rights fee for 2022 is $581,211. That fee is dependent upon the disbursements, the timeline of disbursements within phase one, which is the $8 million.
so? If we move forward with this,
Because I'm sorry, Miss Newborn, because when we previously had proposed this at the beginning of the year based on the original timeline of disbursements, because right now at this time we are behind that timeline. I believe this second phase was projected maybe for February. That original number was for 2022 was $717,000, and now that fee has dropped down to $581,000 because less money has been dispersed within that phase.
so if we continue to build this and the BCO comes, the cargo carrier, the terminal, and we're looking at the first year, and I think we had that discussion in the meeting, and we're looking at a 10% of $600,000. So we kind of retrieve our cost just in the first year after the completion. Is that correct, Mr. Sanders? Okay. And as the terminal completes the bypass, and we're looking at $6 million, is that correct? And if we don't engage in this and there's a lawsuit, we're going to lose out and, to me, incur debt, and we don't have that opportunity of collecting on usage fees. Is that correct? Thank you.
You complete, Ms. Newberry? Dr. Gould yields. And Ms. Newberry, I got to agree with you 100%. It will incur debt. So, I agree with you. It'll incur debt. And in order to incur debt like that, there are rules that I think we should have followed that we did not follow. So I'm going to yield, and I just can't support digging the hole deeper without the transparency that I've been talking about for the last hour. Yes, Mr. Valet? John, excuse me, Mr. Valet.
Somebody, one of the members want to speak?
Mr. But
He yielded.
he yielded. Mr. Bartholomew yielded. Go ahead, Mr. Valet.
Dr. Goy, I've known you a long time and I respect you thoroughly. However, what I heard you say, all this was accepted. I got to take difference with you. I saw for the first time phase one that was presented by Sustainable Partners that came up and had a list of a full paragraph of requirements that had to be done and fulfilled within phase one before you go to phase two. I have yet to see a line item by each one of anybody accepting them, the dollars that were in there that are allocated to it, and what was spent. And Mr. Rousseau, you've been on point with this thing for a long time now. There's no transparency. This has not been accepted by anybody. If anybody should have been looking at it, should have been the port director. He should have been looking at every line item that was out there, what was presented, when it was in a timeline to see that it was done. I haven't heard a comment from the port director or any budget, and all they keep saying is it's all private. It's not private, it's public money. And you're all gonna be on the hook, it's debt, they're spending money out of the budget that was never approved before. I can't understand how this is happening. It's embarrassing for the parish itself to allow this to continue to go on and on. It's evident that nobody likes the contract you have with Chris Fetters. I think we need to have somebody come out and audit, make a determination where the money was spent, how it was spent, and did it fulfill, and what we received for it. And then from there, I think you need a qualified team of people to sit down and determine where you go forward. Because frankly, Dr. Stewart, I agree with you. The port's all we got. I mean, the river's all we got. We have two paramount things in this parish to take care of: flood protection for the people and additional revenue. And the only place we can get revenue when we lost oil and gas is that river. But we don't need to subsidize all these things we're doing. What we're hearing right now today is another bridge. It's a P3. Build it. We'll pay for it over 30 years, and the people will pay for it in some form or fashion. If the port is that good a deal, and we have a terminal that wants to come here, there's plenty of money floating around this world right now for private investment. It can be done. You don't need it. You just need to have people with vision to determine where you're going with this and come up with a plan. All we have is a plan that unfortunately the director inherited from the previous administration. Nothing new. And I agree with you. We need Walker Road without question. We need another exit going through here. We need a rail going out that way. But frankly, we need $350 million to do that. And if we don't get it from the state and federally, we don't have any representation either place that takes care of this parish. We've been the stepchild. Well, all we got is that river. And everybody knows that river is very valuable to us. The East Bank was the primary goal to be developed because the rail and all the infrastructure was there. But we looked the other way. We spent a lot of money, everything down this river. Don't misunderstand what we need down the road, okay? And that's being left out. I got to agree with him. It's a railroad to nowhere yet. When there's a need, the private sector money will come. But you need to have people out there selling it. I could go on for 6 days and talk to you about this. But you need to hire somebody to look at where you spent this money and audit it, thoroughly audit, and make sure it's clear. And then from there, after you're clear with that, maybe you can sit down and talk about where you're going to go to the next phase. But I would not go with the next phase at all. And I would tie up loose ends about how they spend their money.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of following up where I was before, this board approved my contract. This board approved the SP contract. This board agrees that the terminal is necessary for a future. This board agrees that rail is required to make that terminal go. What I haven't heard is how are you going to do it if not this way? Right? When I was brought into this port has all the natural resources and abilities in order to be able to carry forward everything that everyone's talked about. I don't see the funds or the resources available statewide, federally, or otherwise that would come to here in a timely enough manner. At this point in time, we have an operator at the table. We have a customer that is banking a contract, all on a private investment type of a scenario that our investors have verified and validated. We have got an EPC contractor that we are ready to award and move forward with the terminal. We have a coastal use permit that has been approved. There is a lot of progress that has been done on a private dollar to make this go forward. Bringing the rail down in this manner keeps the port at the table. It delivers an alternative revenue stream that you currently do not have. And if you decline to move forward, you will not have. And I have heard all of the strains and the problems that go on in this parish, and $600,000 in year one would make an impact. $6 million by the time that the terminal comes online and Peters Road is there will make an impact. This group has actually put forward and agreed to participate in not only grant applications for Peters Road, but also has staked that they would come in on a very similar basis and provide the $400 million that would be necessary in a timely manner to do that with the port at the table if they choose. If not, it's the railroad. So I guess my question back is, if everybody wants to take a look at the quality of the product, fine, we can sit down with Volker and we can look at the quality of the product. I still haven't heard another way forward. That's what I haven't heard. This is private. This is private.
What? No, this not one at a time. Are you completed, Mr. Fetters?
I am, sir. Thank you.
Well, let me say this. Dr. Gouy, I wish that it was correct that there were people waiting to build this railroad, because I'd ask them to come build it and get us out of the picture. I don't understand why we have to be in the picture other than being a guarantor of the payments. And, I can't support this. And if there would have been maybe more transparency, it might have been differently. There are other opportunities and other ways to do these things. I presented some of them to you, Sandy, and they just fell on deaf ears because you are married to LA 23. And it is correct. Hey, I have the floor. When you want to be recognized, I will recognize you. Okay? So the point is that I put alternatives out there for this rail using the same funding that we are making these payments with, the Venture Global Rents, doing it a different way. But it fell on deaf ears, and I'm not going to go into it anymore. Let's decide what we're going to do and move on. But the transparency here, talking about that the port needs to be at the table, and I keep hearing that. We're at the table, except we can't see what's on the other side of the table, is a fallacy in this discussion.
Oh, if the railroad come through and that year we get that $600,000 for those containers, could anybody tell me how many containers gonna be coming through Belchase? That same year for to get that $600,000. The people in Belchase, you better wake up because that Peters Road deal, that's years and years behind, man. So what kind of convenience do people in Belchase have to deal with for that kind of deal? Can anybody tell me that? Tell the people in Belchase that?
I can't. I don't have the information. I don't even have the.
But it got to take a lot of containers coming through Belchase.
Right. Well, I don't know if anybody has the number. Anybody have the number?
Well, you got $600,000. You should have some kind of figure on how much containers that's going to take. The people should know.
Mr. Feathers will tell you how many containers.
So that number actually equates out to 60,000 rail cars per year. It's right around 2 unit trains a week of total capacity. It's not saying that they will go through Belchase in unit train form. It's about 60,000 cars a year is what the number is, and about $10 a car is what we feel like the market can accept to generate the $600,000.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion on the item?
I want to close, but you got LaFrance.
Mr. LaFrance?
I just want to state that I didn't support the Chris Feathers deal. I didn't support Sustainability Partners. I have a problem with a private entity giving them an exclusive agreement with a public entity. I'm not going to support this, and I'm not going to support the next item. Time and time again, I had asked that they meet with the people on the southern end of this parish. I asked, Mr. Blank not here, he asked several times. I am not going to support any rail that's going to impact the people on the southern end of this parish, and you're not going to meet and you're not going to talk to them. I have a problem with why we keep on asking the same thing and it doesn't happen. Any other employee, you consider that insubordination. Or maybe they're not worried about the people on the southern end. Maybe it doesn't matter to them if they're going to cross Highway 23 and the people have to wait. Or if the people got a detour off of Highway 23 and go to the back levee. Why are we not meeting with the people on the southern end of this parish? The one that's going to be impacted the most. What's the problem? We met with everybody else. You meet with everybody else. Why you can't meet with the people on the southern end of the parish? Are we substandard people? Are you scared of us? What's the problem?
We have looked at dates and we are trying to coordinate those dates right now.
We've been talking about this for months and months and
Right, and we had to let it gel so we knew what we were going to be presenting.
Any further comments, Mr. LaFrance?
Yeah, I think I better take my pressure pill, man.
Dr. Gua, you would like to close?
Is there a comment you'd like to make?
I've just got one point of information, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. If the port does move forward with the construction phase, just a point of information in our contract, the port has the anytime right to purchase the rail from us. So we don't mark anything up, and you would have the right to acquire that rail in the future. So
can you understand my approach, that I'd like to see that number be as small as possible?
I completely understand. Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to see what's being spent.
Yes, sir. So, and not to be antagonistic, but this board just approved a $62,000 trailer. That was a flat price for the trailer. So in the same sense, this board approved a flat price for phase one.
No, don't mislead the public. That was a bid. That was a solicited bid. It wasn't a flat price. It was a bid at a flat price.
Sure.
It had competition. There's no competition in this process.
But this board removed the competition because it gave the authority to the developer.
And that's the problem.
At a 5-4 vote.
And so, I really take offense to you trying to make this deal comparative to a trailer that we purchased for a security trailer. I mean, I don't even see the connection there.
Well, it's you just approved the flat price, right? So you approved the developer. You entered into an exclusive agreement with the developer. So you picked the dance partner, right? And then you entered into an agreement for them to deliver work.
So we're suffering for our mistakes of the past, is what you're saying?
I actually don't think you're suffering. That's the thing.
I'm suffering because I can't get the information.
I understand that you are not happy with what you've not received.
Councilman Black wants to say? Are you finished?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Councilman Black. Councilman Black.
I was waiting for the audience.
Audience is out of order. Let's go. Audience. Councilman Black.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually lost my train of thought with everything going on out there.
You want Dr. Gui to go?
I want to know what's going to happen if this fails, because I heard what Chambrell said. And I want everybody to be clear, because I've been on the 5-4, on the four side of votes many times. And Mr. LaFrance just said, well, it was 5-4. Yeah, it was 5-4, but that's the victor side. So 5-4 hired Sandy, possibly. I'm not sure what his contract was. I'm not sure if 5-4 was close to when we did Chambrell's contract. 5-4 was when we did Chris Fetters, and I disagree with you. I'm not sure if it was Mr. Valle or Mr. Forche who said that nobody likes Chris Fetters. Obviously, 5 people did, which is the majority. And, when I lead this diaz and I lose a vote, I lose the vote. I might lose it 5-4, but that's just what you live with. Because the majority of the people the council members who are elected spoke, and you live with it. That's it. Simple. So to sit up here and say that Mr. Sanders isn't liked, or Mr. Fetters or anybody else that's involved in this isn't liked or isn't doing their job, put up an ordinance. He's got a clause in his contract that he can be terminated in 30 days, and find 5 votes and do it. And do the same thing with Fetters, do the same thing with Volker, do the same thing with everybody. It's as simple as that. I know where I'll vote, but if you have 5 votes to do so, and get it over with. And let's just be a court that's going to sit here and rubber stamp tariffs all day. Because that's all we do. Because we don't want to be involved in port development or progress or revenue generation or job generation or infrastructure improvements. Because what this port is going to do, it's going to bring in infrastructure improvements on the lower end. So my question is, because I just want to be very clear with the public, is if we don't appropriate, because I don't agree with you on this, I do agree with Benny on this point, that if we don't appropriate this money, then you'll just take it out of the operating budget because it falls into policy.
in my opinion, no offense to you guys, I'd be against her paying out of the operating budget. I think if it fails, you walk. I think if it fails, you walk, you sue, you do what you have to do, but I don't think it should come out the operating budget. If 5 people up here don't want to approve it, then it's clear, because it won't be approved in the budget anyway. So put a line on the sand. Because I know I've worked for 7.5 years up here to get to this point, to see this port into fruition. I know Stuart has worked for probably longer, because he's had multiple terms. So what's going to happen if this fails, Sherman? What will you do?
As I stated earlier, if I was following policy when I made these payments, okay? If there was a resolution that stated for Sandy not to pay those payments, they would not have been paid. There was a policy, right, exactly.
You have a fiduciary responsibility to pay them out of the operating budget because we have a policy that says you can.
Correct.
Do you have to?
I think it's more of a legal question as far as if I have to and whether or not they would have grounds in it. I mean, like you say, I have a fiduciary duty because of the policy.
So you would have to pay it.
If I want to be within lines of my fiduciary duty, yes, I do. Yes.
I'm just asking simply, what will happen if?
Mr. Chairman.
Wait,
I'm
turn.
talking.
Point of order.
Point of order.
We have a councilman advocating somebody to sue us.
I'm not
He's out of order.
First of all, Mr. Valet, I'm not advocating to sue. I'm saying it's a possibility.
Excuse me 1 minute, sir. If you're not called up here, sit down. We call you. It's gonna be disruption in this thing today. I will escort you out of here. I know you all got your feelings on stuff should be done, but let's do this like civilized people. This is very important stuff that we are working on for the future of this parish. Whether you live here or you don't live here. Now let's stop it and conduct it right. If you're not, I will escort you out of here. Thank you.
Councilman Black, continue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to finish my point, number 1, to clarify, Mr. Valet, I'm not advocating to sue. I am advocating for him to walk away. Absolutely. If they choose to sue, it's probably within their rights. That's not advocating, Don. You're a lot smarter man than that. I'm not going to go back and forth with you because you have your opinion. I'm simply asking a question to our comptroller, to Ms. Shambrell, to find out what's going to happen if we don't pay. She has clearly said that she has a fiduciary responsibility, no matter if this passes or fails, to pay out of the operating budget, and then that money may come from another line item somewhere else. Simple as that. So thank you for answering my question. Thank you guys for being here and presenting what you did and answering the questions you have. I'm clear, and I hope 4 of the people are as well. I'm done.
Councilmember Bartholomew.
What happens to the port if this fails?
What happens if it fails?
This project, yeah, what happened if we don't pass this resolution or this ordinance? I'm sorry.
Well, we have to have rail to have a port. We have a BCO that has contracts. They've talked to y'all. I don't want to get into some non-disclosure agreements, but they have obligations that they have to meet. They have a timeline. I'm sure that BCO will probably leave.
I'm just trying to figure what's going to happen to the port. And you're saying that these are scenarios that take place. What's going to happen to the function of this project?
You're not going to have a container port.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman LaFrance.
Yes. We talk about walk away. First of all, we walked away from the study that we had. The first study that they did, the study said the best place to put the container port was on the East Bank. And if they would have put the container port on the East Bank, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now because the East Bank already have the railroad. They stole away from John Bartholomew District. They stole from the East Bank. we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. But they have to find a way to try to put it on this side. They have to try to put it on this side so they can pay off some of these buddies. That's why you're dealing with this now. And until we start doing things in the light of day and stop doing things in the back door in the back, this is what's going to happen. Again, the studies state that the best place to put that container port was on the East Bank. They already had the railroad there. There wouldn't be need to spend $50 million for a new railroad on this side. But you see, when you detour and you go down the wrong road, this is what happens. Now you got to try to straighten up this whole mess.
Complete, Councilman LaFrance?
Yes.
Let me say this. We keep hearing that we have no risk. That the developers and sustainability partners carries all the risk. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? We have no risk.
Well, you go default on the loan, you have risk.
So
it's default on the money. We all have to buy. Now, let me rephrase that.
Yeah, you got to get it right, Sandy.
Yeah, okay.
I know you think.
No. We are paying a rights fee.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
You
want to let me talk? I just thought I'd give you a little bit of your medicine.
I can handle it. Let's say Eddie, believe me.
Okay. All right. All right. We are paying money for the rights fee. If we walk away, we have to pay what they put into the rights fee, but we own that rights fee. We have a 10% project that is permit ready. If you want to take it to someone else, we still have to go throughout this permit process. We'll still have to pay money to complete the permit process before we can build a rail. Now, if you want to take it to someone else and have them or to the state and have them bonded out, that's an option. It's not a good one. And the reason it's not a good one is we don't have the financial assets to back up that bond. So this thing could go private.
Yeah, okay. Are you complete?
I'm complete.
It should go private, Sandy. It should go private. And you keep saying it's private money. We can't see this, we can't see that, but yet we guarantee the loan. And I'm repeating myself probably for the 15th time. The problem that I have is that we keep saying we have no risk. But then when we start pushing the button about what's going to happen, we might get sued. We have an obligation. We're paying interest that nobody wants to say it's interest, but there is a number attached to it. I had said it was 6 or 7. Someone said it was 8. Whatever the number is, it's accruing to where we have to pay that money plus another number, whatever you call it. Anyway.
May I respond to that, sir?
What's that?
May I respond to that?
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you. If it does go private, then the port is not going to participate in any of the income streams. All right? I don't think that that's what y'all wanted when you did the strategic plan. The strategic plan said we become a landlord port. And going back to what Mr. LaFrance said, the strategic plan did identify the east side as an immediate port. But for the long-term, overall, most growth, it identified what they called in the strategic plan the Citrus 2 property, which is right where we're going.
I understand all of that. And, as a landlord port, you're correct, but we're not going to own this rail. And if it was such a great deal, Gulf Coast Railroad or Rio Grande Railroad would be at the table to extend it if they could feel that it would be feasible for them to extend it, since they operate the rail that they own here throughout the parish. Now, for whatever reason, they chose not to participate, funding, whatever it is. But if it's such a great deal, I believe that the financing would have been there for them. And I think all we're doing is building a bureaucracy of fees on top of what we already are talking about to be a part of it. I would prefer to see that the private entities that are in the rail business would be running railroads and not us being in between it, other than the ability to take and shave some money off the top.
Well, other landlords are into the rail. They use the rail as a main income stream for future growth. Now, I know we do things a little bit different down here, but we're trying to build a landlord port. And part of that is rail. And we have a guaranteed customer who's ready to go with us, but he needs rail. And they briefed you before.
They have, and I haven't been briefed in a while, so I'm not sure exactly where we're at with all of that. But I can tell you.
They briefed you last month, and they'll be here again on the 27th.
So I understand that, Sandy. So
Okay.
I haven't heard from them in a while, and last month is 27. You know, I haven't heard anything since then. But anyway, I'm in a banner with you. Okay. The bottom line for me is that there is an alternative. We do have enough cash flow to handle a project like this, and I've already expressed that to you. But I'm going to leave it alone. We'll let Dr. Gouy move forward and close, and we'll let the chips fall where they may and the rail run where it runs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everyone's heard what they want to hear, what they don't want to hear. Bottom line is, do we move forward with this arrangement with sustainability partners? All the rest of it, that's arguments for another day as far as I'm concerned. This money needs to be appropriated if we're going to do what we have to do on our share of the rights fee. If it fails, we'll vote on the second one when it comes up. I really hope we don't have any discussion on the second one. I think we've all heard enough discussion. And during the comments, you know, I hope that if it doesn't pass and there's alternative funding, let's look at it. And there were some comments made about paying off buddies. If anybody's paying off buddies, we have a district attorney, we have an attorney general, we have a federal prosecutor. Please, if you know something's going on, make that phone call and do it. That's our obligation. If it's just talk and banter, then it's just talk and banter. But I would really hope we choose our words carefully when we talk about that type of stuff. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll call for the question and ask for a vote.
Question's been called. Machine is open. And the rail fails. Move to the next item, please.
Agenda item 6E, a resolution authorizing Menard Sandy Sanders as Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to accept the work production acceptance, which closes Phase 1, and the certificate of acceptance, which opens Phase 2, per the MUSA contract obligations with sustainability partners and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Gouy.
Offer ask for a second. Call the question unless there's objection.
Object to the question. I want to just say a comment on the close that what this does is it accepts the first, and I'll read it. Stage 1, Phase 1 deliverables included the pre-feasibility and survey documents necessary to complete the 10% design and subsequent permit application. And the 14th and 15th line is what I had the heartburn with, is that it says, whereas the necessary components of Stage 1, Phase 1, 10% design are completed and verified. And they're not verified in my mind. I haven't verified them to make me able to vote for it. So I will not be supporting this resolution. Dr. Gouy, you what? Call a question? Sure. Question's been called. And Phase 1 is accepted by the board as complete. Next item, please.
Item 7, new business. 7A, introductions of resolutions where suspension is being sought. We have one that wasn't on the agenda. A resolution to move the May 26, 2022 regularly scheduled meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District from 3 p.m. to an earlier time. Commissioner Rousseau.
So offered extra suspension to take that item up the agenda today.
Second.
Second by Councilman Konovich. Machine is open on the suspension only. And the rules stand suspended.
A resolution to move the May 26, 2022 regular scheduled meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District from 3 p.m. to an earlier time. Commissioner Rousseau.
So offer an extra second.
We need to
As you know, our next meeting will be held at the courthouse in Point LaHashe, and there's high school graduation at night as well as other functions, and we're trying to move the meeting up to a time that everyone can make it to be able to finish earlier than the normal time that we finish late at night. Anybody at the table have a suggestion for the fill in the blank of the time? One?
That's fine.
Offer it with that change. Ask for a second. Second by Councilman Conovich. Any comments or discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, machine is open. And the resolution is adopted. Let the public be informed that the next Port Harbor and Terminal District meeting at the courthouse will begin at 1 p.m. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 7B, update of PLT. Commissioner Roussel.
Yes, as you know, we've been trying to get an update on PLT, and I'll turn that over to the director for his update.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As recently as this morning, I finally got a hold of Matthew Kegg, who is the representative for PLT, and he really said that there was no update from the previous time. So I'm just going to give you the bullet points on where we are. Matthew did say that having the diversion go through that property has really kind of scared a lot of prospects that they have courted. They got a little cold feet with it. But PLT continues to pay the pilot. The lease contract also provides that PLT is under an obligation to release the portion of the property if CPRA determines it is needed for the diversion, so that the port may in turn sell that property to CPRA at a fair market value. The proceeds from such a sale would be turned over to PLT for a credit towards its investment. So the sale to CPRA is sacrosanct. The lease contemplates that PLT reaching a development decision on or after 12/22, December of this year, as to whether or not the project is viable. Again, up to this point, they have not found any suitors to come in and lease the property. Until PLT makes that decision, it has to continue to make the pilot payments as they've done in the annual administrative payment to the port at $200,000. If PLT determines the project is not viable, the lease can be terminated and PLT can market the property and have the port sell the property less than 50 acres, which is very important, and I will get into that in detail, Mr. Chairman. PLT can market the property and have the port sell the property less than 50 acres adjacent to Irontown already set aside for non-deployment, but the property cannot be sold for less than fair market value. If there's no purchaser for fair market value, the port and PLT can attempt to continue to lease the property. In that case, the proceeds from such leases would be turned over to PLT until they had been reimbursed all of their investment costs plus 12%. As previously mentioned, the 50-acre set-aside buffer is specifically described in and excerpted in the PLT port lease. I sent to the board members this morning a copy of that language of the set-aside under the title of Declaration of Restrictions and Covenants. It was filed on record of February of 21. Furthering, it said the lease executed between the port and PTL specifically excludes 50 acres from the lease. This means that the 50 acres was not part of the property leased to PLT, and PLT cannot legally demand the port sell the dedicated 50 acres. So that acreage is very sacred. And y'all also had a copy of the recording page. It's about 6 or 7 pages. So once again, they have not found a prospect to lease it, and they can in December tell us they want to sell
Any questions? Hearing none, thank you for the report and the update. Move to the next item.
Agenda item 8, approval of the April 28th, 2022 regular meeting and the May 9th, 2022 special meeting minutes.
We have a motion. Councilman who?
So often.
Councilman LaFrance offers as a second. Second by Councilmember Newberry. Any comments or discussion on the approval of the April 28th regular meeting and the May 9th, 2022 special meeting minutes? Hearing none, machine is open. And the minutes are adopted, 6-2 absent. Councilman Black and Alborough are out of the chamber, and Blink is absent. No further discussion or items to come before the Port Harbour Terminal District today. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So offered.
Councilmember LaFrance offers a motion to adjourn. A second? Second by Ms. Newberry. Machine is open. And the meeting is adjourned at 5:27.